Hello, 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 everyone. Hey, Heather.
Grant, how are you?
Hi, Grant.
Whoops. Let me change this. Whoops. Oh, hang on. Sorry, fixing my sound here for a second. Hey, Muddy. All right, now we should be working. Um, cool. Hello, everyone. Um, all right. Welcome to another exciting episode. Um, we've got we've got a few questions that have come in, which is good. So, uh, fix a couple of things here. Great. Um, all right. Let me just double check. Um, there's a there's a couple of things, a couple of changes. Um, I might hold off. I'll hold off for a little bit on that. And we can do a few questions. We've even got a couple of hands raised as well. But let's get a couple of the questions done, Heather. And then we can do some hands.
Yeah, sounds good. So Sarah had a question. She was wondering what happens when you put a button as required.
A button as required in a. Mm, is Sarah is Sarah here?
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw it once. I don't know, somewhere. I think like maybe it was in a form.
Yeah, it must be a form.
Yeah. And
Um,
it said, like, do you want this to be required?
yeah. I don't yeah, I'd need to see a screenshot. It shouldn't be an option to have on the form because even buttons aren't you can't add buttons as a form input. And so perhaps it was aligning with another field that was required. But yeah, if you can find it again and take a screenshot, then show us that. I'll be interested if there was a little bug there or something that was coming up for a button, but that shouldn't be an option. So
Okay. I was just wondering
You
because I
could
saw it once and I was like, well, know what that is.
right,
you can make a question required in forms, right?
of course, right, yeah, exactly, yeah. Question you can make, yeah, the different field types and the different input types of a form you can make required, so that you can't submit the form without completing that input type. But a button is not an input type, and so shouldn't have a required thing. But yeah, see what you find, and then you can send us a screenshot if something looks weird. That'd be cool.
Okay. Yeah, that
Great.
form question thing was probably what I was thinking of.
Okay.
I was just, yeah. Thank you.
Cool. No worries.
All right. The
Next
next one was
question.
also from Sarah. She has a certificate that she needs everyone to download. What's the best way to make sure that they all see and get it?
Yeah. So it's just a matter of creating a button um, that is pointing to download the certificate. Um, and so I'll just show you that quickly again. Let me just line up my screen nicely. So of course you can make your button as big as you like, um, and and as obvious as you need it to be for people to be able to find it. So you'll see creating a button. So this was making a button as big as possible, and then we were choosing what is that button going to. So it's not a link or an area or a form. It's going to a certificate, and you're choosing which certificate it is. So we've got a few tests in there. Um, and then it's a matter of pointing out, creating a certificate. That's what happens when it generates, and then there's a little alert to say the pop-up that says that it will be emailed to you. um, and so yeah, it's really about making that button really obvious for people, so that, and then talking about that at the end of your program, or sending another email out specifically. Go back to the dashboard to download your certificate. So that's you. You can't force them to download it, but I'm sure that they'll be interested to do it. And so if you reinforce it with an email or something, then you should get people downloading it. Cool. Just finishing getting dressed here.
Take your time. We're not on a time or anything, Grant.
There we go. Look at that.
So our next question. Oh, sorry.
No, go.
Our next question's from Chris. He has a question about the Obvio welcome email. He wants to know what the trigger is to send that. Is it triggered the moment that an Obvio link is created?
Yeah, technically, at the moment that an attendee is added, and that is in any way, any way that you can add an attendee to Obvio is when that, if the welcome email is enabled, then as soon as an attendee is added, either manually imported by CSV or by an integration coming in from another service, it's creating an attendee, then the welcome email is triggered at that point. So it's only ever triggered once, and it's only at the point at which it's created. And so I'll just show that very quickly. I don't think that Chris is here, but that's all cool. We can send a link to this recording. So if we were to look at welcome email, then as long as it is enabled, as soon as and you save it, as soon as it's enabled and saved, then the email will go out automatically to whoever is created as an attendee, and it just happens once. And if you need to do that at any other time, then it's a broadcast. So it's very separate functionality. It's either you on creation of the attendee is when you want to send it out, that's a welcome email. Any other time is a scheduled broadcast. And I'll just reiterate to another little fun feature that I added, which is when you send a test, you can have a broadcast email all set up, and you can hit send test, and then ask you to put an email in. If you put an email of someone that is an attendee, then all of their data is used in that email. So that's a handy way of firing off an email, just a single email to someone that might have missed it or that sort of thing. So it's particularly handy when you're supporting people and saying, and they've said, I didn't get my email. Then you could send a test, which actually is the real email. And so that's a way of getting that to them quickly and easily. So, I'll send it again for you, and you can send it across. So there you go. Next question.
So Devin said, I want to talk about Obvio and having it set up for me. I have questions about that.
I have questions. Is Devin here?
I am.
Oh, nice. Hey, Devin.
Yeah, so
Fire away.
the questions I have is I want to start doing videos, but I want to be able to direct people where I can capture their email addresses. And
Okay.
I'm not sure all that I need to have in place to have you guys do my Obvio for me. But
Okay.
like interested in having ClickFunnels, right?
Okay.
A payment system. And so I'm just, and Keep. I believe those are the three things that I need. Are you able to help me connect those when you
Sure. Yeah. So, uh, okay. So are you in Leap?
I am.
Okay. And you haven't set up an Obvio event as yet. Okay.
Right, right.
So, okay. So, um, so for everyone again that we have the Leap program that's part of Blue and Barry's and Sage event management. And then there's Obvio, which is separate but connected. And so on these calls, we're talking specifically about the use of Obvio, which is fine. Your questions relate to that. But the aspect of having your event set up, your first event set up, is a Leap thing and not necessarily tied to what we're doing at Obvio and about that. So there's what you can do is you can contact your Leap contact. Um, to you get a form to fill in about setting up your first event, having your event set up, and the sooner you do that, the better. But it's just a bunch of questions that they ask, and then it's likely that Heather would be working on that to create that for you. Um, and so that's that. That's getting your first event set up
Yeah.
in kind of all the basics running as far as it looks, the dashboard setup. As far as the integrations go, so things like your Keep integration, there is. Have you seen the workshop videos, the Ovio workshop videos that walk through a whole bunch of these steps? Have you
No,
seen
I
those at all?
started them, so I'm almost
Okay.
done with workshop 1.
Okay, great. So there is in those you'll see how the integrations work. As
Okay.
a general rule, um, all the integrations work in the same way generally, and that is that uh, that when a user is or an attendee is because there's different names or subscribers or there's different names that people have that an actual person has in your CRM. So for Keep, for example, when that's created, it will send across to Ovio when you've got that connected. It will send to Ovio. Ovio creates that attendee in Ovio and then sends the magic link or the login URL back to the integration to store in some sort of custom field. When that now sits within your CRM, and now when you want to send out emails, you've got that login URL for them, and then you can schedule out your emails and you can track all of that.
Okay.
So,
And it sounds like, oh, go ahead.
uh, you go.
Oh, I was just gonna say that it sounds like you almost don't need your own website if you've got Obvio. Like
Yeah,
everything.
it's good, and that was the direction I'm just going. Is that there is overlap? Okay, and so in general, what's happened is we continue to add features to Ovio. That means that you don't necessarily need to use an external service, but it particularly around sort of email, sending emails out, that sort of thing. Where it's helpful to think about what Ovio is uh, a platform specifically for an event. So while some people are able to sort of work around it a little bit and use it for multiple events, or an ongoing event, generally the way that we consider it is that an event, which often might be a 3-day event, for example, a 3-day conference, for example, we think about what are all the requirements to execute a good 3-day event can you do that all within Obvio? And yes, you can. So say you've got 50 attendees that are coming to your event. They've signed up somehow. Now this is where it's how are you managing your list and your ongoing community. That's not what Obvio does, right? It's not for managing that ongoing relationship that you could have with someone. But you could have something that was you advertised a free event, for example, and it was a free 2-hour session, and you wanted people to come to that. You can use Obvio for that, where you have a sign up page, and the sign up is simply first name, last name, email. They would come to that. That would get them to the dashboard for that 2-hour event. They join Zoom. You do your 2-hour event. You've now got them as an attendee for that 2-hour event. You might then say, okay, if you are now wanting to come to my 3-day event, it's going to cost you $45,000, and you'll need to go to this payment sign up system. And that, at the moment, that sign up and selling a ticket needs to be done externally from Obvio. We're very, very close. Everyone regularly is hearing about how close Marketplace is. We just have done another round of little fixes, and it's extremely, extremely close. And what we're calling Marketplace is the ability to sell tickets in Obvio, for an event. And so it's kind of that payment front end. And we use Stripe as the payment provider, the service. Yeah. It's the only one that we provide, only one that we support. And so now it will mean that you can send people to a sign up page. They can see all the information, enter their payment information, and now they get access to the dashboard, and away it goes from there. So I know I'm probably giving you more information than you needed, but it's just trying to see where does Obvio fit in it's really in the whole line, So then another big thing was, for a long time we didn't have emails, being able to send emails out directly from Obvio, but we have that. And so that's a key element that for a basic event, and you want to send multiple emails out, here's your login link, or you want to send to people on the second day and say, hey, here's your link, come back, that sort of thing. You can do all of that within Obvio. And you could send a post email as well, that maybe you want to send a survey out or something. You can do all of that. And as we were talking just before about, Chris, you missed, I was talking about the welcome email. You can have all of that done within Obvio. But for some people, they might want to have all of their emails sent from their CRM, so that you have a history, a long history of the relationship that you've had with that person. And so it's depending on how big and complicated your list is, your overall list in your customer relationship, that you might want all of your emails sent out from that, and you want to be able to segment things, and you want to be able to control that. Then you can totally do that, because the only information that you really need from Obvio is that login link, that Obvio magic link, which gets people directly to the dashboard. So specifically for you, I would continue to watch those long but helpful workshop videos, because it'll step you through all of the different aspects of it. And one of those steps is the integrations. Now, remember too that when you're in Searchy is where we keep all those videos. Searchy is just a video hosting platform. The cool thing about Searchy is, like in the name, is that you can search, and so you could search for keep, for example, and then you'll get straight to the section where Blue goes into talking about connecting and integration, connecting keep. But it is very straightforward in that when you go to the attendees and services and you click on keep, it'll ask you to log into your keep account, and it'll tie that through, and then now you're connected for that event. Everything is always event based, so you can have totally different integrations for different events. So it's always setting up for every event that you do. You're setting up that specific integration that you need.
Right.
So I think that's kind of the steps, and continue to come here and ask questions. That's super cool. And but yeah, if you step through that, you do the leap thing, that will get Heather to set up your first event. If you have sort of your logos and your color scheme, things like that, that's the sort of questions that you'll be asked. Then that will get your dashboard set up, and then you'll get some sort of assistance or at least some walkthroughs of how to connect those things. And then if there's any questions, then come back and we can step through those specific questions.
Great. I've been wanting to ask that question for a few weeks, so thank you.
Great. Well, look at that. You're progressing as of today.
All right.
Cool. Let's see. We've had a couple of hands raised. We've got a couple of questions too. Generally, what we're trying to do is the questions. You can see that Devon really hacked the system nicely, right? And that was putting a question in to say that she wants to ask a question, and so that was a good way of doing it, because then we're kind of managing and seeing all the questions that we've got. But Pamela has been patiently raising her hand for a while there. Pamela, you got a question? Or just simply raised a hand for fun? All right. Catherine, have you got a question? These people that have got their hands raised but not video on.
I think Tom had a question.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay. Who was that? That's
I
Catherine?
may not
Yes.
be continuing. Yeah, it's Catherine. Yeah.
Okay.
I may not be continuing with LEAP membership at the end of this cycle. And I love Obvio. Can I stay with Obvio no matter what?
Yeah, 100%. So, so there are a lot of our
That's my
Obvio
cat.
users. Okay, I can't hear you, Cat. So it's all good. There was a lot of our Obvio users are Leap members, but then we also have a lot of people that are just Obvio subscribers. And so what will happen is in your Obvio login, when you're looking at your when you're logged in, there's an option to go to billing, and what happens is when your Leap membership runs out, then your Obvio subscription will also end. And then what will happen is the next time that you log into Obvio, it'll say you have no subscription, and it'll take you to the billing page, and then you'll decide which of the 3 different plans that you would pick from to be able to continue to use Obvio.
What are the 3 options?
I'll show you those. We're going to be updating this page somewhat soon, but generally this is the way that it works. This is the billing page, and so the basic. So what you're on essentially at the moment is the equivalent of Obvio Pro, which is what a Leap member gets.
Yeah.
Okay, and so which is essentially 2,000 a year. You can do it monthly as well, so people sometimes choose to do that, $200 a month. is what you're on now, you might find that just Obvio is okay for your needs. So it just, you can see like one Zoom meeting per event is what's included in that,
Mhm.
and events up to 4 days. So you'll see that, and one organization is sort of the limitation. So you see then when you go to this, you obviously getting much more than double. And so then you get unlimited duration. So if you are doing, weekly events or some monthly events or things like that, that you might want to continue using that same event. That's one thing there. And then that you could have 5 Zoom meetings active at once. So it means you can always have, you can pay to have more Zoom meetings active at the time, but this is five active Zoom meetings, meaning that you have a help desk going, and you might have a tech check or something, and then you might have a couple of Zoom meetings or something as well. Now, lots of people might only ever use one Zoom meeting for while you're starting out, but you can have up to 5 with this, and then you can have 3 organizations, and the organizations is a way of grouping your users together, in a sense, the team members. And so you might have not just different events, but very different groups of or team that you're using for that, as well as different billing structures and things. And so that's where organizations is helpful for that. And then the enterprise is really for higher end, where you're using lots of events, lots of organizations, and you've got a lot more 25 active Zoom meetings running at once, as well as up to 1,000. What this doesn't, this is what we need to update, as well as having up to 1,000 people per event. So this,
Yep.
Yep.
How many per Zoom room? I thought
yeah,
it was
so
500.
500 for Pro. Yep. I think we're on 300 for Ovio for the basic plan, and 1,000 for the enterprise. Once
Okay.
again, you can also pay for more attendees. It's the 2 add-ons that you can do. You can pay for more Zoom rooms, so more Zoom meetings to have at once. You can also have pay for more attendees, and the attendees you add on as a it's an add-on for attendees that have come to the dashboard as a minimum. So, for example, you could send out your login links. You might have 1,000 people have signed up to come to your event, and you've sent out all the links, but actually only 400 people show up, and which is very common, particularly for free events, but also for paid events. It's amazing how many people pay and still don't show up.
Yep.
We only count the person if they have come to the dashboard. They are then classed as an active attendee. And so depending on that number, if that goes over on a Pro, if it goes over 500, then you need to buy an add-on for that event to pay for more attendees. And so that's one thing. And also, if you wanted to open more Zoom meetings at the same time, then you can pay for those too. So that's how that
Thanks.
works.
Yeah, no, thanks, Grant. That's very helpful. That gives me
Good.
exactly what I need to know.
Yeah. So you can absolutely continue on, and that's our hope with all of our Leap users, is that they would want to continue on to use Obvio even beyond Leap. So yeah, great. Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks, Grant.
So all right, let's see, Heather, where are we at with questions?
So Tom has his question up next.
Okay, good.
He just ran his 5th Obvio event. But he had some trouble integrating with ConvertKit this time, not the last time though. So he has a couple of questions to ask.
Nice.
You missed the
I'm with it.
juicy parts. I was raving about Obvio Grant once again.
Oh, yes.
I'm loving it. 5 times
Nice.
now, 2 different events. Every time I use it, I'm a bigger fan. If anyone listening in hasn't taken the plunge, get up, do your events. You're going to love it. So thank you for that, Grant, all the work you guys are putting in. A bizarre thing happened this time that didn't happen before with ConvertKit. We set up everything. I worked with Danella, just as a reminder. So she runs the event side. She sets it all up, manages it all, the integration. She had not done ConvertKit integrating. The person on her team who had was no longer on her team. So her and I sorted it out. We set up all the tags, tested it all, worked like a charm with all the normal ticket buyers. If I added someone manually to the same funnel in ConvertKit, which I've done lots, very used to it, and tag them with the right tags for Obvio to say, hello, here we are. It saw them, it added them in Obvio, but it didn't send the special link back most of the time. Some of the time it did, and especially when we first tested it. So I got burned because I tested it 3 times. It worked like a charm. I'm like, great, don't have to worry about that. And then from that point on, pretty much it never worked again. So I wanted to know, is it user error, which certainly would be the case? Is it some quirk you've had any experience with ConvertKit on? I've got all the stuff on the screen I can show you quickly if it matters, but I don't want to have the same thing happen next time, because as it turns out, the only people I did that to were VIPs I was treating. And so I made their life hell trying to get in.
I'm sorry for the troubles that you had there. That's not ideal at all. W- we we're certainly playing whack-a-mole at the moment with the integrations. So there's been a few changes that we're trying to keep up with. So um so all I'm thinking about is that I actually want one of our developers to have a look into this one specifically.
Okay.
If if you want to just share really quickly your flow
Sure.
that you've got. I don't think that we're going to see. I don't think that it's going to be as simple as a user error.
I call them
think there might
ESOs,
be.
equipment smarter than operator, because it happens to me all the time. So, but if you give me the right to share or the permission to share, I'll do it.
Yeah, sure, great, no worries. Yeah, you can go ahead now. I'll use this recording to work with the
Right. So
developer to
in
have.
ConvertKit,
Mhm.
122 was the tag for this event. So I'll just open up a random subscriber. The 3-digit field 122. And then we added Obvio June 2024. Actually, sorry, we added the June VIP June. They were all VIPs this time around. We tried something new. And in this one, what do you know? There you go. There's no one in the field. This is the field that it was coming back to. There happens to be no one in this one. Almost everyone who bought a ticket was getting this field, and it was showing up when we emailed them out of ConvertKit. It was just when we manually added people in. So I would manually add these tags. The sequence itself, really, really simple one. Let's see, SAS VIP ticket. When they're tagged as a buyer, they come in and we add in the Obvio tag, and then we add in tag 122 so that it'll speak to Obvio. And then we send them a welcome email. So that's the whole sequence. I mean, there's some reminders, but that's basically the sequence. And then inside the platform itself, how do I get to where it's connected again? I always forget how to
Just
find
attendees, just that's it, and then services. Yeah.
There we go. Services. And so 122 is there. Worked like a charm. Updated login fields, last name, phone, tagged There's the tag going back, checked in,
Mhm.
signed waiver. All of that performed beautifully
Right.
when they came in from that, and the
Yes.
stats showed up and everything tracked like a charm.
Okay.
And the confusing part for Danella and I was it was in the system. So when I would email her or message her, she already had the link because she could find it. It just wasn't coming back to ConvertKit only on the manually added ones, near as we can tell.
Manually added into
Meaning if they didn't buy a
ConvertKit.
ticket and pay
Mhm.
for a ticket and go to Stripe and all that, I
Yep.
just put them in the system and I added the tags as if they had bought the ConvertKit tags. I
Okay.
triggered the
Yeah.
sequence.
Yeah. Okay. So when people did go through the purchase and Stripe, that was working okay?
Pretty much. There's a few glitches here and there, but nothing material.
Okay. Okay, so that does lead me to think that it's more on the ConvertKit side. That there was something there that the trigger wasn't sending off in the same way that it does in the flow that you would have with a purchase. Um, Muddy, I'm trying to remember who's done some ConvertKit work.
The great Muddy Schlegel's hiding here somewhere.
Oh, he's hanging out, but he's
got a
on
muddy
the move.
background. I see now. He's got a muddy background.
That's right. Yeah, he was on the move, so he might not be tracking us as much as I would like at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is. Oh, he's got his gardening gloves on, so he's getting serious.
He's literally getting muddy.
You have to summon the muddy the right way. The muddy shall appear.
Muddy, have you messed around with ConvertKit?
Yeah, I have, and it sounds, the only thing I was going to check for is whether and I wasn't watching the screen share, whether the sync attendees toggle was toggled, and on a couple of the integrations, one of the ways to help kind of reset them is to toggle sync attendees off and back on, and that kind of reestablishes the connection with the external integration. And that can help in some cases like this. It shouldn't matter whether you add the tag manually, whether you add them to the automation in ConvertKit manually, or whether they go through the flow. As long as they have the right tag, that should be enough, because that's what Obvio is listening for. And so that's the only thing I could think is to kind of try and reset the integration as a whole.
Gotcha. Okay, appreciate that.
Yeah.
I don't see how to turn off the sync in ConvertKit.
It's not in ConvertKit, it's on the Obvio services page at the top of the page.
Yeah. So back in the services and then ConvertKit and then top right, you should see.
Oh, and then ConvertKit.
Then ConvertKit, yeah. And then you've got import attendees. So you can
import attendees.
Yeah, on that one, which that'll just do another. It's kind of a manual push just to bring in all the attendees again, just to make sure that everything's right.
Gotcha.
If you were seeing a little issue there, then it's a way of just syncing it again to see.
Gotcha.
Kind of,
yeah, I don't want to do that now because we had people buy tickets after the event. I don't want to throw my data off, but
yeah, fair enough.
Well, the other thing I would say is that the round trip from an external integration into Obvio and then back with the magic link to that external integration varies a little bit by service, but it can take 5, 10, sometimes even up to 15 minutes if it's a huge list in my experience. And so when you're setting up the automations to send them their link, just make sure there's a little delay in there. I had a client try and do that recently, that as soon as somebody bought, they sent them the email, but it was too quick and the link hadn't populated yet. So
that's a separate issue. I like that one because we send out a welcome email immediately normally. So yeah, that makes sense. We could easily delay that. That's a good idea. And because we're going to be migrating to Go High Level, how's that been working so far? Are you guys integrated with that? I heard it was coming. I haven't kept up to date. Grant.
Yeah. That absolutely is working. We've got several people using high level, and that's working really well.
Awesome. Great.
So, so yeah, and I think in high level we've had some people that before the welcome email is sent, they're actually looking to see that the URL that the magic link URL field is populated before it sends. So it's like it's even better than a delay because it's actually checking that it is available, that it is populated before it sends. So
That's
that
way above my pay grade, but I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
And
but
then
it's
one other just like
Hey.
personal thing I thought of just as I was saying this, if I could, the pulling out the data between a full price, in our case, $97 ticket and a $1 come as our guest ticket, and separating the data. So far, I've only been able to figure out a way to do that manually. Has anyone in your system found a way to do it where I can pull the data automatically? Because, show up rate, for example, check-in rate, things like
Mhm.
that. So
I
far, the
see.
only way I can find out is I have to manually take a spreadsheet and manually sort the categories and then, look back at the tags and the whole bit and then manually calculate. But your dashboard's so powerful in terms of the data. I guess think of it as different classes of ticket buyers. Is that
Yeah, yeah. So that's a it's a good use case for um, a group data within Obvio. And so if we think of tags and groups, they are very similar, but they're slightly different in that a group can have one field with multiple values.
Oh,
A tag, a tag is simply a single value,
yeah.
right? And so the difference is to say that a tag could be that your favorite color is red. And so now we tag you with red and Heather's got blue and whatever, right? And that now that tag is just a random tag in the groups of tags versus having a group that says favorite color. And now we're referencing that group and saying favorite color, and then all the different people with red, blue, whatever. So you can see how you're sorting data in a different way. And ticket type is a very common way to use a group to say ticket and then guest, $1 guest or
Whatever we
VIP,
want to call it. Yeah.
whatever you want, right? And
Would
then
that be
you're
the
using
same
that
if we
to
survey
filter.
them by business category? Because we want to do that next time and do breakouts by category of business.
Right.
Would that be a way of
Yeah.
using groups then with that?
Yes, it is. And so the way that groups can then work, see, the way that we filter can be on groups or tags, and often you can achieve very much the same thing with either. But here's an example of where um, you want to be able to display a button or a particular feature for someone, rather than just saying tag equals red. What you're able to say is favorite color equals red or blue or yellow or the fact that now it's much broader than just having to say tag equals red or tag equals blue or tag equals yellow, whatever it is. That's an example of where you can use it. The other place that it comes in really handy is in labels, is attendee labels, where you can append something to the end of someone's name in Zoom. And this is where we use on some of the larger events, we might use emojis to classify different people. Now, it could be that it's a VIP ticket, or it's a or it could also be even income bracket. We've
Right.
had that for some events as well. And so we do a different
And if
emoji.
we're coding it like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and A, B, C, D, E, that can that show up at the front of their name or only at the end of their
Not at
name?
the front, only at the end. Um, only at the end. But of course, you can still filter based on the end of a name, right? So
Oh.
so I know that
So if we're
some
doing
people think
breakouts
about searching.
by the
Yes.
letters A, B, and C and D, for example,
Yeah. Yeah. So what always happens with an attendee label is that it's always doing a space, dash, space, then X, whatever it is that you're adding as the label. Therefore, when you're filtering your attendee list, you can filter it by dash, space, X, whatever it is that you
Got
want
it.
to do. It's going to filter all of those. You're going to see it in the same way that you would have been thinking of wanting to filter from the start. You can do it at the end. And the
Love it.
reason that we only do it at the end is that when your events scale to beyond one Zoom meeting, the room number is prepended to the name, right?
Got
So
it.
then you'll have 2 dash name, first name, last name, dash label.
Yep.
And
Love it.
so now you can work on your filters that way. And
Love
often
it.
numbers and emojis and things like that can be used for doing that sort of thing. So, but the thing I'd also just say about groups is that you can also append the full group value. So, for example, I have done this in 2 different ways. One is state and country, and so simple abbreviation of the state and or country. And now I just added a single label line that was add the state to the end of their name. And now everyone comes in with their state and country
Cool.
appended, which is really nice. It's a really great way of seeing it. Now, of course, you've got to create that data. That's not happening automatically. You've got to get that data somehow.
Yeah.
But once it's there, then you can show it. The other way I did it was with trainee doctors, and we had different levels of trainees and registrars and professors, and all that you can imagine, all the different different categories and how smart they were in their education journey.
Right.
And what was amazing with that is it was just simply an abbreviation of that, prof or trainee or whatever it was. And now when people are asking questions, and you could either see it in the chat or you could see everywhere that their name appeared, you kind of had this extra insight as to the qualification of the person, which was really handy. So
Love
now
it.
you're like, oh, a trainee's asking this question, and then a professor's answering it, or
And
or
so,
we'll
Grant, if we tag them when they register and all that information is collected, how does that get back to Obvio? Those additional items.
Yeah. So now you're talking about, which is slightly different with each integration, is the extra data that you're wanting to push across, either by tags or groups. And so the groups is saying, not only do I want first name value, last name value, email value, I also want to add favorite color and then the value, right? And you're linking those groups together.
So in ConvertKit, they call those fields. So it would be unique
Right.
fields for those. That makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, explore that in that connection in creating the attendee in Obvio and the group that can be done there. Now, you've always got the ability to update attendees, even via a manual process or a manual process, or also an import. And so you can do a CSV import and know that the way that the CSV import works, and really the way that the integrations work as well, is that if you're sending an email address that already exists in Obvio, then it's going to update that record. And so it won't change the login URL. It will simply change the data that has changed. And so people can use this, and I use this regularly, where I want to make a bulk number of changes to my attendees. I can do an export from Obvio into CSV, change the columns around, and then import again, make all the changes that I want, import again, and there it's all done. Now, obviously we would want that to work right from the start in your ConvertKit integration, and if you've got the data there, you've caught it, then you want to push that across into Obvio so that you can then use it in your event. So
Well, it
that's
also
the
puts
idea.
me at ease about we're switching to high level, but we're not doing
Right.
that right away. And I want to get this up and running for the next event. So it puts me at ease there because now I can turn that on and then I can add that in later. So
Yes. Well, yes, exactly. You can always do that. And
love
so
it.
so it's a great use case because often the data that you have, lots of the data that you have in a registration sign up is not necessarily needed or used within Ovio, right? But some could be and could be very valuable. For example, location,
Yeah.
start and country, or ticket type, or some specific questions that you've asked.
Love it.
So yeah, so there's some extra playing around with that stuff, but
Much appreciated. Thanks, Grant.
yeah, no, you're very welcome. Great. I think Heather, we'll just remember that Chris had to go, obviously, but we answered his question before he came, and so we'll just remember we can post a link to this recording in Facebook because I think he posted it on Facebook too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Cool. All right. Next question.
Franklin, did you want to ask a question for the event that you have next Wednesday? I saw you posted it in there, but if you don't want to, we can email you as well. Oh, you're muted. You just need to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me
There
now?
it is. We can.
Okay.
Hello.
I feel a little bit out of sorts. I've been trying to intermittently stay in touch. I just made a post regarding a recent transition of my dad, but I wanted to really thank Blue and Barry and all you guys for doing what you're doing. The fact that you maintained the status of my account within Avio, I'm really very, very thankful for that. And I think I'm going to activate I'm getting back toward doing all that, but I'm activate the mid-level membership. But Grant, it seems like I've listened to a couple of conversations. I know the template you guys created was simple. I used it a couple of times, maybe about a year ago. And so I know there's been an inordinate amount of changes from that time because you guys are rapidly evolving all the time. So I was trying to see if I could get some assistance. I'm going to do a 3-hour challenge next Wednesday. I think it's manageable. I'm kind of like at ground zero on it, but I don't feel confident enough to really just say, okay, I can do this. And but I wanted to see if I can get some consultancy with you directly, or to be able to set that up and run it. My equipment, it may sound okay right now, but I've got data space problems. I've got a iPad that I can work with, and I have this computer. I wanted to see if it was possible that I could have someone, or you or someone, remotely handle the management of it while I present the program. So, and if I can get a reasonable price for doing that, I will do that. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about and see the possibility about. So that's what I posted. And Heather, thank you so much for having me ask the question. So that's where I'm at. That's what's going on.
Okay. That's great. And I commend you for the questions that you're asking, because it shows the, I think, a good direction to be going in that you want to focus on the bare minimum that you need to make your event work,
Right.
and not all the bells and whistles that could be
Right.
done.
Right.
You could get distracted by that. And then having some assistance, particularly for the event, is a really good idea. Um, I I would put you in touch with Muddy. Muddy is not only a gardener, but is also a great Obvio user and can also help. So I wonder, Muddy, have you got a green thumbs up for being able to connect with Franklin?
Share your achievements, celebrate
Great.
others, and get to know
Someone's- So
So do I have do I kind of have to say Om? I saw a note of that. Do I have to say Om the money, or do I need a special time?
yeah, that's right. Yes, yeah, exactly. So Muddy is a great supporter of the Ovio community, and also has a business with helping people execute events. And so so the first step I think would be to chat with Muddy, to connect and just see if there's something that you can work out there, and see what can happen. So, but I would encourage you to, as I said about the bare minimum, is really getting back to just bare bones of what you just need to make this first event happen.
Yes.
And often my encouragement to people is focus mostly on your connection with your people, the people that come, and the content delivery and the process that you're working on, all of those things that only you can do, because ultimately at the end of the event, people are going to remember those things the most, more so than there was a pretty button on the dashboard, or there was some fancy thing. They're not going to care about that at that point. They're going to care about the content and the connection that they had with you. And so wherever possible, not being worried about the technology and how Obvio is doing the things, and just having a very basic workflow that gets people into where you need them to get them into Zoom, to manage that process nicely, then you'll be in a good place. And so if Muddy can assist with that, if Muddy can't, he might have someone else or something that we can kind of help with there. But generally, we at Obvio, our support is these calls every week, and we can go into lots of detail and depth with these calls. It's a very efficient way of us supporting people, because we can go specifically into things for people's event, and multiple people are learning from that. And so that's just an effective way of us providing support rather than one-on-one support. So this is a good way of doing it. And then there's a few other people. There's Justin James, and there's a couple of other people that can also assist on a professional level with Obvio. And then I'm also still working on an idea of people giving time for time, other Obvio users assisting other Obvio users in and having an exchange of, I'll work on your event, you come and work on my event, because I think there are some things that you just need someone. It's almost like you could have a monkey do some of these things, where you just want an extra pair of eyes and hands to have their mouse ready to unmute or mute someone or be in the chat, or they just need a little bit of extra support that you could equally offer somebody else as well. And so I'm just thinking about how we can support that to happen. But your event's coming up soon. You couldn't talk to anyone better than Muddy to be able to sort of assist in where you need to go with that. So
would you recommend that I try to contact him on the Facebook group, or?
So do you know what, Muddy could message
He
you
posted
directly.
his number in the chat for you, Franklin.
Oh, I see it. Okay. Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
And all the best, and congratulations on just locking in a date as well. It's the best thing to do. You've locked it in, you committed now, and you just make it happen. So
yeah, I appreciate it. There's no way I can get you to do your cat in the hat thing, is it?
Cat in the hat.
You know how you used to read those
Oh,
that
that was a chat GPT. That's a bit of a callback. there was
Yeah.
there was I got ChatGPT to write a little uh, a Dr. Seuss thing. So
Yeah, that
we
was amazing.
we might be able to do that again sometime, Franklin.
All right. Thank
Very
you.
good.
Thank you.
All the best. All right. Next question.
Linda wants to know, is there a way to give VAs restricted access to Obvio?
Yeah. So virtual assistants is actually, it's kind of linked to what we were just talking about as far as having assistants, having extra people to do a couple of things that you need. So really it depends on what tasks you would want them to do. And so we're talking about team access at this point. So let me show you how that works. Oh, let me just say too that the very basic level of assistance that you can have from someone is you can set someone up as an attendee. They join the Zoom meeting like everyone else. You then make them a co-host in Zoom, and now they're able to assist you in Zoom. And that is all without them having any access to the back end of Obvio. So that's kind of the lowest level of support that you could have is you just want some Zoom support. And there's a role for that, as in that's really helpful. Someone watching the chat, someone muting people if they've unmuted themselves, or managing. Sometimes in events we have it where we're going to turn off the chat for 20 minutes. So in the host tools, you have someone else manage that. That's not you. That person can just be going to the host tools button, turning off chat, or allowing people to mute and unmute themselves. So for most of the time, you don't want them to be able to unmute themselves. And then you get to a Q&A time and you want to change it so that they can unmute themselves. Or you want them to say, okay, I've got a question from Heather. We're now going to unmute you. And you have someone that goes and clicks unmute or ask to unmute. So there is a role there for someone to be doing Zoom support for you, which has nothing to do with Obvio, right? That's just they've come in, you've made them a co-host. They've now got the ability to do that. However, there are times where you also want them to be able to you also want you also want them to be able to do more on the event. For example, you want them to be able to add attendees or to send out a login link or that sort of thing, right? And so so what we have in your organization settings is the team access. And so when we look at this, what we're looking at is specifically you're creating different roles, and the roles is the scope of a level of access that you want to give to those individual members. And so you could create a new role that was VA, for example, right? Wow, we already did that. A VA VIP or whatever you want to call it, right? You can call that whatever you want, and then you can decide out of all of the different key functions that they can do. So for a VA, you likely don't want them to be able to create an event because you'll do that. Even the event settings probably don't need them to be changing anything there. Maybe you want them to be able to get to statistics and see what's going on. There's not too much damage that they can do there. The event design is the dashboard. Here we go. There's the dashboard design, and so maybe there might be some things that you want them to go and enable a button, or there's something on the dashboard that you want to do. So possibly, but maybe not. The emoji page is really that's just a way of giving production people access to an emoji page. The start areas, so you want them to be able to start the Zoom meetings, maybe not, but possibly, and so you can think about that. They can start the area, they can start the rooms. The rooms that's specifically separated because sometimes you think about large events, right, where you have multiple rooms going, Zoom rooms. You might give access for people to be able to start the room, but not be able to open the area, and to be able to let people actually let attendees in. Zoom attendance, once again, it's like the statistics, the reporting that you can get. View recordings, possibly they don't need that, right? And then update attendees is probably a key one where you're perhaps you've got a ticket system working, a support ticket system, and people are emailing and saying, I can't get in, or I haven't got my login link, or whatever it is, the level of support. And they might find that the email that came to support through that ticket is different to what you have in the system because there's a spelling error in it. Well, then a VA could go in to Obvio, update that email, and send them a link and get them in. So that's something there. Check-in attendees is based around tech check, and whether you are using the full tech check step in Obvio, that gives them the ability to check people in, which means that they can be a tech check agent at that point. It's a whole nother thing. Marketplace is the new system of which is yet to be released, but very close. And that is where you can sell tickets and be able to edit the payment pages and things like that. So that's another option. And then broadcasts. Broadcast is the communications, if you want them to be able to send broadcasts. Lots of these things will literally either they can have a link to these pages or not. So broadcasts, like if they don't have access to this, then they won't see the broadcast option in the menu. Update team is a pretty key one, as if they are able to add more team members and then purchase add-ons, particularly for more attendees or more Zoom meetings. And you most likely, they don't need access to that because you could purchase that in advance. So, and then once you've created that role type, then in members, you're putting in the name, you're choosing the role type, and then away it goes. And that's how they get access. And so we tend to make it really clear that we think of Obvio users as people that have access to the back end. They have access to the admin. They can make changes. They're a user. An attendee is someone that only has access to the front end, sort of the dashboard. And they're coming in as an attendee. And sometimes, as I said at the start, they can overlap a little bit. You can have attendees that are a little bit like team members because of how you give them particular access to things. So hopefully that helps for you to see how you can create a role for the VA, and then you can add those VAs in as members. When you add their email address, they'll get sent an email to say that they've been added. And just something for everyone to remember as well is that a user, an Obvio user, can have access to multiple organizations. And so what happens when they get invited to your organization is when they log into Obvio, they will see the one organization or the multiple organizations that they've been invited to across all of Obvio. So it means that it's very handy. They have a single login, and now they see all the different organizations that they have access to. Team members are always related to one organization, as in that's the access that they're getting, which is all the events under one organization. That's kind of how that structure works. Did you want to add something to that, Muddy?
Yeah, just two quick things. On the roles and team members, it's interesting to note that only the account owner can create roles. So even if the check mark is checked that says manage team members, they can invite new team members and choose what level access, what roles those team members have, but only the account owner can create the actual different roles. The second thing to note is that if new features to Obvio have been added, most recently Zoom attendance, awesome feature in Obvio that was added, that's a permission, but by default, when new permissions are added, they are unchecked. So if you haven't looked at your roles in a while, you may want to go back and you'll note that Zoom attendance may be unchecked for your team members because that may have been added since then. So that's all.
That's really good. Thank you. Some extra multitasking there. Yeah, that it's a really key thing, but often people don't necessarily know that they are the owner of the organization. The person who started the organization is the owner and is the only one that's able to create those roles. So that's a good key thing to remember. So there was a question about ticket support ticket systems, and I really recommend using a ticket system. This is one of those times where it works. If it works big, it works small. And sometimes we just have a simple email, just a single email, and now you've got to manage who is monitoring that email account and who's replying. And even when it's only one person doing it, having a ticket system that allows team to reply is really powerful. Because you imagine that people are sending an email through, having a couple of people that are able to respond to those, managing who is doing it and seeing who is doing it is really powerful, and you can see how that scales. So you very quickly get from one email address with an account to moving to having two people that are looking at that email account, and moving to a ticket system means that they can get an auto response that says we've received your email, and now we've all used ticket systems, as in we've all been on the other side of ticket systems, right? Where you're sending a message and you get a response back. So yeah, Zendesk is one. We use for our help at obv.io, we use helpdesk.com. There's a few around, and they are very similar. The thing that you can also do is live chat, and we've used that to great effect as well. Of course, you need people to be managing that, to be sitting on the end of that. And so the way that live chat works is where you're adding a little embed code into the page, into the Obvio page, and now people can ask questions directly there, and you can live chat to them rather than them having to go out to an email. Anyway, it's just something to think about in your whole support system. Is how do you support people when things go wrong? So, great. So you have live chat, and so live chat can be added to individual pages, and it can be added to the dashboard, and you can think about how you want that to work. So that if you're sending links out to people and they get to the dashboard, but then they're a bit lost, or they don't know, they're having trouble with Zoom or whatever it is, then that live chat option is there. And then some people might just reply to the email if they're having problems too. So it really is support is really a key thing that you want to think about for when would this happen, and so this is one of the things that the reason that we had tech check is that the day before we were getting people to come to the dashboard and check that everything's working, and they're going into Zoom, and now they know that everything's going to work on their machine the next day when they come. We're not Lots of events are not doing tech check quite like that anymore. And so you just want to have a strategy where what you're trying to avoid is that your event has started, you're already off and racing, and now you've got 5 or 10 people who are having user trouble. There's nothing wrong with your system, but they're having problems getting into Zoom, or they don't quite understand the dashboard, they don't understand the buttons, or they haven't quite clicked something. And now you're getting emails coming in, or you're getting whatever, all sorts of different ways of people, or you've got other attendees that are saying, I've got a friend in the chat, I've got a friend who can't get in. You want to avoid all of that because it really is unsettling for everyone, particularly when everyone is made aware, oh, there's 5 people who are trying to get in, they can't get in, or they've tried to do this and they can't get in. So have a strategy in place for that. Think about, can you open your event an hour early, and encourage people to come early to make sure everything's working well, to take the pressure off the start of your event. This is where sometimes having hosts, and people that are just, greeting people, things like that, is a way to manage that rather than the key content deliverer doing all of that. Having someone else do that is really a helpful thing. It's kind of this pre-show that you can do. And hey, where is everyone coming in from? Oh, it's great to see that. Okay, we've got a problem here. We can help this person get them all settled. You can think about how you manage that. So set the start time an hour early. Set that so they can show up early and can start on time an hour later. Have the start time. Amy, yeah, totally. You totally have. If you plan your schedule to know that you're actually starting a half an hour later than what you've told people or something, like it can actually be that your first half an hour is more casual, registration time, that type of okay, grab a coffee now while we, get everyone settled and make sure that everything's all working. Okay, great. We've got everyone in. We're all settled. Now let's go. And this is a key reminder about online events, is that you should not be restricted by time and space. I don't think ever be, there's no space restriction. There's no time restriction. You don't have to, get everyone out into the foyer for them to, have their meal or whatever. You don't have to worry about any of that. And I don't think you need to be apologetic about times going over, or, or pushing the boundary on that. If people need to leave, they leave, they don't, they'll just go. And so lots of people, conversely, will want to stay for as long as you'll be there. And so it's just a different mindset. And it changes your approach to the event, and it calms everyone when you're like, okay, we've got time together now. You manage your own time. We've got a chunk of time, and we're going to just do this together. We're going to walk through this, and we're going to do it as a group. And you see how that calms everyone. Everyone's like, yeah, great. I have carved out time. I've got time to do this. Sometimes we try to set events where we're like, it's going to be an hour, and it's just this hour, and we're going to jam all this stuff into it because I don't want to take too much people's time. More often than not, you could be saying, we're going to start at this time, and it's going to go for about 2 hours. And that's the time window we've got. And now when you're like, okay, I've got about an hour of content and we've got a 2 hour window to do this, man, how different does that feel? Rather than you trying to squeeze so much and try, I'm conscious of everyone's time. I don't want, but we want to get through this. We're like, just calm down. Everyone's at home. Everyone's, like it's okay. Give yourself some time. Have time for questions. Be able to. It should be relaxed. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be time pressured. And so that's an example of that. Getting people in, taking the time. Okay, everyone's all good. All right, now let's flow into this. And now, okay, let's have some questions. And you need to go, then please, by all means, go. But we've got some interest here. We've got some people that want to hang around, ask some questions, and have some discussion about this. It's great. We'll hang around. So anyway, that was more than just the the question about support and a ticket system, but there's something to that, the way that you think about how you structure your event and take the pressure off yourself as well. So fireworks, it's awesome, Linda. Well done. Cool. Another question, Heather?
Yes. So Janie asked, how often does the integration from Obvio go high level? So she has the integration set up. However, she's unsure what the timeline or delay is from the automation from her CRM to connect with Obvio and back and forth.
Yeah, so Muddy was talking about that before as well, as just as the time can vary a little bit based on how many attendees that you have as well, and a few other things about how high level is working at the time. But it's normally minutes, not hours. If it's hours, there's something else going on. It's likely if you're waiting an hour, then it hasn't worked. So it would normally be within minutes that you're seeing the integration work, so that if it's all set up correctly in high level, it's going across to Obvio and coming back. And most of the time you're seeing that within minutes. And so double check that. And yeah, if it's taking multiple minutes, a long time, then okay. If it's been a few hours, something is not quite right there. And I wonder if that's more of a sync issue there, and then how you're seeing it to know when it's coming back. Yeah, be asking this. There's a couple of questions there about internet and your attendees. That was just one attendee. Yeah, something's not quite right there. So if you could send through the details of that help at ovv.io, we can send that on to our dev team just to double check that things are working correctly. We, as I said before, there's a little bit of whack-a-mole at the moment of just like fixing little bugs that are popping up, because there's some changes that have happened on the integration side, on their side, and then there's some changes that we have done as well in trying to speed up some things. So yeah, and that's the thing we can identify. Do you know screen captures are really helpful, like Lumio. There's lots of systems that you can do a screen capture recording where you can show, and so they're really helpful because it means that you can show your high level account setup and how you've done that, and then show your Obvio side, and then also show that you do you do an example of adding an attendee and see that in high level, and then not seeing it in Obvio, or vice versa, because then we can send that whole video to our dev team and they can track it all through and then look at the back end and see exactly what's going on and um try to identify that. So bare minimum is like screenshots, taking screenshots and attaching those in your email. And then the ultimate is a recording of, and potentially you talking through how you've set it all up. And that can really speeds up the process of supporting you in that. Awesome. Kindergartner. Okay, next question.
So Colton, who may not actually be Colton, but was invited by Colton, has some Zoom technical questions, and was wondering if you'd be able to help answer them.
Mhm.
So, hey, how's it going? This is
Hey.
again, this is not Colton here. I'll turn on my camera. That'll make it a little bit easier for you to see me. Hi. So
Hey.
my name is Josh. I am an AV technician for Colton Lindsay. So the one thing that I am kind of nervous to do right now, I don't want to kind of get off track on the discussion that you have about using your platform and stuff like that. So this may be more stuff that we could potentially, I don't know if you're available to do one-on-one calls or anything like that, or it's more Zoom technical discussion.
It's totally fine. So often the way that these calls go is that we do talk a lot about Ovio. You can hear that I was talking about event setup in general and sort of
Gotcha.
online events in general and thinking about that. And then inevitably, we talk about technical production and stuff as well. And so we're all AV guys as well, and so that it's kind of all relates. So fire away. You can go your hardest.
All right, awesome. So, I guess the first question that I have, I noticed with a lot of the Tony Robbins events that they're doing, and that's something that drew me to asking you guys these questions. They have the clean gallery view outputs that they do for the backgrounds inside of their studios and things like that. I was wondering, do you know how they're managing those clean gallery views? Is it just that they're straight up importing the laptops with the default Zoom gallery view and then going from there? Or do they have another method of getting that gallery view out so that you can see all of the different people behind them on the screens? For Colton's studio, he has a number of screens behind him in the actual studio space where he wants the Zoom gallery view to be. Unfortunately, every time, like somebody shares their screen or something like that, or puts up a chat message, you'll see annoyances that kind of creep in. So I was just curious, what's your idea for taking on that kind of task?
Yeah, so I can tell you exactly the way that Tony's team does it, and that is a more complex setup where they have pinned like a pin farm, and so they have multiple computers, like about 40 computers, and they're pinning a bunch of people to a second display, and then that second display is all going into a multi-view, like a Blackmagic multi-view 16,
Gotcha. So they're
right?
sort of doing it the hardest but best way possible.
Exactly, yeah. So for them, it's very hardware based,
Okay, good.
and they're controlling exactly the 16, people that they want to see in their gallery view that they're pushing back out to the live. The way that they're doing kind of the stadium view and the big LED walls behind is scraping a gallery view, but it's then kind of cropping out all the individual screens. So
I
every now and again,
I
you'll see.
actually I wrote a piece of software to do that at the beginning of the pandemic. I had a
Okay.
boss that said, "Hey, what Tony Robbins is doing, I want that." And so I recreated the 360-degree stage and then was scraping gallery views and then putting them into a virtual software to take each
Nice.
individual output and put it into the super source and stuff. It was a nightmare. Uh,
Yeah, I'm sure.
especially at the beginning before there are any tools. So
Yeah.
that's interesting.
So there's that. There is a new piece of software called Tiles for Zoom, And so it's from Liminal, which does Zoom OSC and Zoom ISO. You know those?
I love
Yep.
those.
Yeah. So they've now brought out this new one called Tiles. Tiles is a really powerful gallery creating system. And I'm I'm reluctant. At some point, I'm going to talk about how we can use that on Obvio meetings. At the moment, there's a little bit of a restriction in as to how you can get that software connected to a Zoom event, an Obvio event, because we lock down the way that people can access the Zoom meetings. So in the background, what we're doing is a Zoom registration, but it's a manual registration,
Yep.
right? And so if people share the meeting ID and the passcode from an Obvio event, all that happens is they go to a registration page and it's a manual approval and it just goes nowhere.
Gotcha.
Whereas when they're an attendee through Obvio, it's essentially doing a registration, approving it, and sending them through. Because of that approval process and registration process, some of these other systems, Zoom ISO, Zoom OIC, Tiles, gets caught up in that registration process, and it doesn't work.
Gotcha.
So what's the systems that do work, and that people use on events to great effect, particularly the type of event you're talking about, is Zoom Rooms. Zoom Rooms, as in the conference system, has the ability to run 3 displays out. You can then do a 7x7 grid times 3. So now you're talking, you've got 147 people that you're able to see across, and depending on the production equipment that you've got, you could take those 3 displays and then merge them, and so you can do some pretty cool stuff with that, in the way that can manage the gallery view. You then won't get chat messages, you won't get any debris sort of on the screen, or or mouse and things popping up on that. So we have used that, and thinking about how what your host is seeing versus what is in the set. So we think about those in 2 different ways, right? So it's like, how are they seeing the audience and the people they're wanting to interact with, and then what are you putting in the set as far as what that looks like, as far as faces and things like that. And so it's an interesting time, particularly with Tiles. If you have a look, I don't know if you're familiar with the Zoom Test Kitchen. I don't know if you've heard of that. Okay, yeah. So there are a couple of it's a group of people that meet every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. You look at it on YouTube, you'll find a whole bunch. If you go back a couple of weeks, you'll see Andy from Zoom and Liminal, who has the products. He runs through how Tiles works. So this was just a couple of weeks ago. That'll get your mind ticking over on how Tiles works, because it literally is, you can create a canvas, whatever size you want. It could be 1080, it could be 4K, it can be whatever. And then you can put in however many of the gallery that you want. You want 6, you want 8, you want 50. And
That's
then
awesome.
how big are those? What the size of them? Round, square, 16:9 equivalent, or 3:4, 4:3 or whatever. Upload a background, and output that to a display. It's really very, very cool. Particularly for you, Josh, that has had to develop stuff yourself to go to this extreme, where you're just like, oh wow, you just click a few buttons and now you're seeing it live update. Is really cool.
Can I ask one other question? Sorry, I don't want to take much time.
No, you're fine.
So the other question that I have gotten from Colton and other clients in the past, How do you get a clean chat output? So the way that I've done this in the past is, again, just taking the chat window, sizing it up full screen, and then cropping in using my video mixing software. But that also, again, causes problems because stuff can pop in front of it and things like that. I was wondering, does Zoom have any sort of method of getting clean chat that is live out of a meeting into some sort of external environment? And you're the only person I've ever been able to ask that question because Google is useless.
Yes. So we have we've done a few different things. One is we have just simply had a computer dedicated to the chat.
Mhm.
And often in sets, in studios, will you have a portrait screen, and so
Yep.
we might have a 50-inch TV or something, and we just have it in portrait, and then we have the chat and we expand it out, and then we just leave it there and we don't touch it. And now the chat's just flying past and away it goes. That's one system.
The problem
Um,
that I've had with that is when we have remote participants share things, it screws up all of the windows because Zoom
okay,
takes control over all of the windows and makes them resize
so that,
themselves.
so that's just a little tweak in the Zoom settings to say when someone shares,
Hmm.
maintain the window sizes. So
Gotcha.
there's a
I didn't even
there's
know
an
that
option.
existed.
Yeah. So it's annoying. It's an annoying default of Zoom that it will go into full screen mode when someone shares. But if you look in the Zoom options,
Mhm.
you'll find and it's in screen share, and then it'll
Gotcha.
say,
Okay, cool.
yeah,
Maintain current
it'll
size. Yeah.
there you go. There you go. And
Yeah.
so now it's not going to affect that chat window pane at all.
That's great.
And that's just going to stay and it'll away it'll go. Right. So the other thing is Zoom Rooms. Zoom Rooms also has a chat screen output that you can use and you can manipulate a little bit. So that's another way of doing it. And then you won't be surprised that we, for our larger events where we're working across multiple Zoom meetings, um, we've done some Zoom OSC integrations where we're getting the chat as raw text and then outputting
Oh,
that.
okay. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
and then we're outputting that to a web page. And
Yeah,
so yeah,
that actually interests me. I didn't think of potentially using Zoom OSC to pull that out. So that's really
right.
great. I'm a big fan of the liminal stuff. It's all been really great.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah. So yeah, we've just got, as I said, the same issues sort of apply with getting Zoom OSC into a Zoom an Obvio event. On our enterprise plan, what we provide for all the Zoom rooms is a Zoom ZAC token,
Hmm.
Zoom access token, and you can join from Zoom OSC and Zoom ISO. You can join using a ZAC token.
Hmm.
Um, and so we provide that on the enterprise plan. But we're just exploring how we can do, kind of help people a bit more to be able to use some of these other systems. But we've got to manage the security on it because you can imagine. I'm sure that Colton has quite high ticket prices for some of the events. We have
Hmm.
to really manage when people are paying thousands of dollars to come to a Zoom event, and then you can just send that link out to any one of your friends, and now they all just join.
Yeah.
We have to really manage how we do security, and so if we're opening a hole for getting Zoom ISO or OSC, for example, we want to make sure that that hole is not just available for anyone. So that's the
Yeah.
thinking there.
No, I wish that this software had existed back during the pandemic.
Right.
Back in 2020, I did a Zoom call with 5,000 people in multiple different Zoom rooms simultaneously, and it
Okay.
was
Cool.
absolutely awful to manage. So knowing that stuff like this is coming around and existing is really cool.
Well, it sounds like you're going. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, 1 second. Right.
Yeah.
Let's just try. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the same sort of journey as us, Josh.
Yeah.
You know, where it's the way that Obvio started is that it was right in March, April 2020, and we had an event. Blue had an event where there was 400 people were supposed to come, and so that was fine, except that it turned into 1,200 people. You know, and so then it was like, okay, now we need to do multiple rooms, and instantly the thing that Blue and Barry were really committed to was they wanted the experience of the hosts to be exceptional, wanted to be really good. And so having multiple screens, it was a napkin drawing that Blue did where it was like 9 TVs with lots of gallery views, seeing lots of faces and getting that sense. And so that was the origin story of Obvio. And then it didn't take long, and Tony Robbins heard about it, and then he came and saw
Gotcha.
the studio, and then also saw about how Obvio is being used to manage getting attendees into all those rooms, and managing all of the uh, initially it was like a round robin system where they would which Zoom meeting would they go into, and now it's a much more complex load balancing system that goes
That was
across all
how
of those.
that was how we managed it too, was a round robin system that we set up to
Right.
distribute Zoom links.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we very quickly got to a load balanced system, and so now it was seeing which is the smallest room, and and now we've done 65, I think 68,000 people or something we've done in one event, or all in Zoom meeting, so. Oh, nice.
Well, that's awesome. That answers most of my questions, so thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and you'll find that that Blue and I will geek out on this stuff for as long as you want to, and so and Muddy also is highly up on all of the things that we are just talking about, and so you're welcome to come back as much as you want and talk about those things. But yeah, so Zoom Test Kitchen, and the other one I'd say is office hours as well. I don't know if you know of that, Alex Lindsay. It's actually how Blue and I met, and how I also met with Muddy as well. So officehours.global is that system, and I think you'll totally geek out on that. They're a group of people that meet every day, every single day, and have since March 2020. And it's a live show, 7 a.m. Pacific. Okay, thank you. And it's a bunch of media, technical sort of producers and event producers, and media production people, all that sort of thing. And so Andy from Zoom is connected really closely to that, to office hours. And then the Zoom Test Kitchen has kind of a bit of a relationship as well to office hours. So I've probably just, there's a whole vortex that you're going to fall into now, with office hours and Zoom Test Kitchen, but you'll be highly well connected now, and then coming back and comparing notes on what you're doing with Obvio. We'd love to hear it and support you more with it. So
thank you.
You're welcome. Cool. Everyone, some of our other people on this call are like glazing over as we're talking super technical about how all this stuff works, but you get the general idea about what we're trying to achieve. You hear these things. Yes, we're talking technically about the production aspects, but you're hearing these same things about making sure that the attendee experience is one thing, but the host experience is a whole nother thing. And so sometimes you're thinking about what is the host's, presenter, whoever it is, what's their experience of how they're able to engage. And so we know that the better that we can set up our hosts, and the more faces that they can see from the event, the better the event is. And so it's always something worth thinking about, that of course you can do your event on a laptop screen and that's great, but just in the back of your mind, have this thinking about what would happen if I have multiple screens where I can see more faces, or I can see what's going on more. How would that affect, what I'm doing? And it's even things like standing up and stuff as well. We want people to be able to stand when they're presenting, and to have space where they're able to sort of move around and engage a little bit more. It's just a higher energy level. So cool. Wake up, Heather. I put you to
I'm
sleep.
awake. I didn't fall asleep. I'm alive.
All
The
right.
next question's from Jenny. She wants to know, how do you set up a green room or a viewing room for speakers or friends or family, that you want them to view the content, but you don't actually want them to go into breakout rooms?
It's a great question, and it's something that we do on lots of the events. In fact, all the events that we run, we do that type of system, where we have a green room, and we have a feed in there of what's going on, so that team members are sitting there often, and stakeholders of the events are sitting in there. So it's very easy from an Obvio side, right? Because you're creating another Zoom area, and you've got a button that takes people to that, and you can limit that button access to just team members, or so you just make sure that you've got you can have attendees that have a tag team, for example, or crew, or whatever it is, and now you'll have that button assigned to tag equals. I guess I could show you this. I'm talking it all through, remembering the visual learners. Let's have a look here. So, I'm kind of showing you the easiest part first, but if we were to think about a button that was green room, and it's going to join an area. I haven't really got the area set up, but let's call it, it's the spare area. So that's the button green room, and for fun, we can even make the background green. You see what I'm doing there? I know, it's brilliant. And then we can be saying the tags need to include green room. So now we've got a hideous green button there, which would only be for people that have team. So tags includes green room. So now I'm simply in attendees. I'm finding the people that I want, and I'm giving them the tag green room. And now if we were to look at that.
Grant, didn't you create that button so you don't have to copy and paste to get into an attendees page?
I know, I did. The reason I did that is that I wanted to hit save. But yes, you're exactly right. I wanted to hit save before I did it. So now that green room button is appearing for me, as in for this attendee that I updated. But are you there? Oh, let's use Heather's there. All right. So now if I go here, look at someone else's, it's not there, right? I mean, that's simple. I'm dodging your question. because I'm giving you the easiest part. You're like, I get how you do buttons. That's fine. How do you get the actual feed into that room? So what it needs is you to have another computer that is sitting in the Zoom meeting, the attendee Zoom meeting, and then it's sharing it into the green room. And so there's a few ways of doing that, and none are easy, really. Right? None are super simple. I'll be interested in Muddy's take on it. I'll give you my take, and then you can see what Muddy thinks. Often I think about how I can have dedicated computers doing certain tasks, and so the simplest way is having one computer that's joined the attendee Zoom, and then another computer that has like a capture card, like an HDMI capture, that's taking the output from one laptop and taking it into the input of another laptop. And it's taking the video and audio and sending that into the green room. So what you're doing is you're connecting two Zoom meetings together. You're taking the feed out of one, the audio and video off of one, and sending it into another one. And the things there's some so that's one way of doing it. There is some ways of doing it on a single computer, which involves joining Zoom twice, which that starts to be a bit of the issue if you joined one Zoom and then you're sending it into another. I feel Muddy's chomping at the bit to give some ideas on this. Go ahead, Muddy. What do you think?
Well, the first question that comes to mind is the question that Grant usually asks first, which is, what are you trying to accomplish? And Grant, of course, is absolutely right. It's easy to create a button to go to a separate area. The challenge is you need to get audio and video into that. However, if the intent is for you want them to be able to watch live but not interact, perhaps you just have an unlisted YouTube link, right? Perhaps you just do a live stream from the meeting to an unlisted link on YouTube, and then you can give them the YouTube link to watch. You could, one step fancier, is kind of embed that on the dashboard as a post that was only visible to them. But essentially, if you really just want them to watch, the advantage of having a separate Zoom room is on breaks, you could pop over there, right, and visit with them or whatever. Like, you could go into that room with them. However, you need to make sure that someone else is host while you do that, so it doesn't end the meeting. Like, there's some other complications to just leaving your main stage in the middle of an event. But if you really just want them to watch it, you don't. Now, the other advantage of setting up a room is that they're all in there together. So they can unmute and talk to each other and kind of have a shared watch experience. So if that's what you're trying to create, a separate Zoom room, like a green room, might be a great idea. If you just want them to be able to watch along but not get sucked into breakout rooms and stuff, then maybe just a watch page on YouTube. That's what came to mind.
That's a great suggestion. It's one of the many reasons that I love Muddy is the way that he thinks about these things. So and there's a combination of that too, and that is where you could still have the green room that doesn't have the feed in it, and they're all just watching the live stream, but they are still hanging out in the green room and able to talk to each other and chat to each other, and you're able to jump in there and talk to them and that sort of thing. Is that idea of the green room? As I said, we use that all the time for our stakeholders and team members, and that's where they get access. That's kind of the hub. It's like we need to talk about something that's going on, or we need to make a change to the schedule, or that's where we do it, in the green room. And often we have the feed going in there and we can mute it. We can mute the feed and then we can have a discussion and then unmute it, that sort of thing. So there's lots of ways of doing it. The other thing is doing that live stream, and the live stream is super simple, right? That's what I'm doing right now in this meeting. I'm streaming to YouTube. I literally went as the host. I went to down the bottom, live streaming, stream to YouTube. It opened my YouTube page, and I changed the title, and it starts streaming. You can then change the preferences or the security settings, which is what Muddy was saying about it being an unlisted live stream, so that it's not going to your channel and everyone's seeing it. It's unlisted, and so it's essentially private. And then you're just giving that link to the people that you want. The thing you could also do with that is you could just be streaming it to to YouTube, but only you don't give that link to anyone. And you open that on a computer, and then you screen share that YouTube and audio back into the green room. Right. And so that's a way that you could kind of get around and have it all done on one computer. So so that's another idea. So I guess the other thing I just encourage you with is the sizing. Sorry, do you want to say something, Jenny?
Yeah, I have one follow-up question. What is a phrase that I can Google to talk about actually having the two computers, like the first option I'd just like to play with?
Yeah.
But what do I Google to find some steps to try it and think around with it myself?
It's a great question, because often we think now in terms of Google strings, like Google search terms, rather than answers to questions.
Google, good luck. It's not something I don't think you'll find, but what you're doing is connecting to Zoom meetings. So that's what I would think of. You're connecting to Zoom meetings.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess I think I've said this sort of thing before, is that there's people like Muddy and a number of other people, Justin James I say as well, and there's people that do this all the time and have setups for it. We have setups. I've got setups here to do exactly what you're talking about, and the ability to change the volume as well, and so that we can leave it on all the time, and so you can talk over the top of it, but it's always present. I just encourage you with what's the things that only you can do. I've said this before, right? And what's the direction you want to go. Now, I don't want to in any way be condescending or discounting your desire to do this stuff, because if you're really interested in it and you want to continue doing more of it, then I want to assist you and help you in doing it. If that's the motivation that you've got, and that you want to do more of this tech stuff and you really love it and you want to play around with it, then awesome. Let's share notes. I guess I just question that for you. Is it out of interest and desire, or is it out of necessity? And if it is out of necessity, then how can we get to the point where you can build the team? And the energy that you would be putting into researching this stuff, can we put that more into the business and get you to a point where you build out the team, and now you've got a team that are just doing it because that's what they do? Is that fair, or am I pushing you in an unfair direction?
Oh, it's probably fair. I think I can justify why I want to learn how to do it, because it feels like productive, but I wear a couple hats, and one of them is entrepreneur, who is launching my business and going to do it through events. And I have a full-time job. And with my full-time job, I have the opportunity to play in a little bit more of this. So trying out a new feature and getting to play with it in that capacity was the reason for this ask. But probably that was the coaching that I needed on the other side as well. So thank you.
Well, well, yeah, and maybe you're straddling both of those scenarios, and so I don't I don't want to discourage you if it's something that you want to explore. Um, so let me give you a little bit more on that, and that is just that there's a lot of what's currently going on uh, for for Muddy and I. We work on some events together, and my business. I think I've explained before that Blue and Barry with Sage Event Management use Obvio, all the time for all of the events that they run. They run lots of big events, studio-based events. Often they're getting people to come to the studio in Charleston, and they've got a couple of big studios there, and they've got all the setups, and they make it all happen. I also have a company in Australia, and what we focus in on is studioless or centerless events where no one is in one particular place, and we're bringing everyone in from Zoom. And so things like Green Room become really important because we don't have a single place where everyone is, and we're literally spread across the world, and we need that communication to work really well. And so we have built systems, and we've tried and tested different ways of doing things, and lots of that has been hardware. I've got all these computers and things in here to make it work. And then we're also exploring cloud-based ways of doing things as well, where the advantages of cloud is being able to spin up a series of computers and have them talking to each other, and have Zoom on this one, and that sends it back into this one, and this one sends it up to this one. And so we're playing with those things, and we're doing that together as well. So generally there is the religion that we often talk about is, a religious discussion is whether you're doing things in hardware or you're doing things in software. And so when you're searching around online, what you'll find is people say, I do this with OBS, and I can open multiple Zoom meetings here, and I can have multiple instances of OBS, and you've got 25 windows on your computer, and it all just works, right? And then the other side is, like we were talking with Josh before when he was talking about Tony Robbins and saying, how do they do the gallery view? I'm like, they do the 16 windows of gallery by having 16 computers and having all those plugged into hardware that then's making a multi-view that they're then pushing back into a Zoom meeting. It's an example of people using hardware to do a whole bunch of stuff. And I lean towards hardware, but I'm being seduced by lots of cloud opportunities now to be able to do what we're talking about. And the hardware aspect is having dedicated computers to one task, where you're not fighting lots of windows. And it's like, this computer has Zoom on it, and that output of that is going into this computer that has Zoom on it, a different Zoom, and I'm not changing windows, and I can see exactly what's going on. The output of that is going into there. That's really clear. And so that's kind of the Googling that you can do, that is, joining two Zoom meetings together. There's just a little bit of extra challenge slightly with Obvio, and that's our security, as I was talking about before, is how you get those Zoom meetings to join. And on one computer, how can you join multiple Zoom meetings? And that's a tricky thing. It is possible to do it, but it often is and you might have this with your full-time job, is enterprise Zoom, 3 full-time jobs. Nice. 3 different jobs. That's great. Is as enterprise Zoom accounts, or pro Zoom accounts, often have a login as a setting option to allow joining multiple Zoom meetings at the same time. And the interesting thing is that when you're logged into Zoom with an account like that, you can then launch multiple Obvio meetings on the same computer. And then you can actually be joined in a main stage and a green room and whatever, all on the one computer, which can be helpful and can be a real dangerous thing to do as well. So yeah, as I said, I'm conscious that it's often just really convoluted, what we're talking about, because there's not just one way of doing it. And it's not until you start playing around with a bunch of things that you start thinking, yeah, this is the way that I want to do it. But I'm happy to keep assisting you as you play around with it and see what you come up with. So sweet. What did I miss in the chat? Shut up, Grant. You're talking too long about boring things. None of that.
Never.
Oh yeah, Zoom, but never. Thank you. What did Angela say? The easiest tech possible, so I can concentrate on connection and delivery. Good to learn about the behind the scenes tech, very high level at the macro level. Yeah, exactly, Angela. I think that's the tricky thing that I'm always conscious of in when we're talking about this stuff. Is that we can lose sight of it, and lots of techs do, right? Like lots of technical people gravitate towards more technical, and lose sight of the focus and the content and the community. And it's one of the things that I tried to pride myself on, is understanding all of the tech stuff, but never losing sight of the human and the human interaction and what is it that people really want. And so I question myself all the time. Is this serving the purpose? Is it a good investment of time and money? And is it going to make a difference to the attendee experience? And a green room is a great example of communication is key with your team, with all events. Whenever you can communicate clearly and easily, your event can manage all sorts of problems. But we all have experienced events that has terrible communication, and you've now all of your problems snowball into train wrecks because you can't communicate with your team. And so sometimes we think about communications is a secondary, but it has to be the primary thing you think about is how do you communicate with your team? Because when inevitably things go wrong, which they always do, it's a live event, things always pop up, is how do you communicate? And so asking the questions around a green room or team room or that type of thing, is totally the right questions to be asking. And then you can focus on the community and that. And so yeah, I'm thinking about these sorts of things a lot. Is how do we at Obvio support the solo operators that are getting it started and can't spend thousands of dollars on bringing in team. So how do we support in thinking about prioritizing the things that really matter? So but I encourage you all, keep coming back, and we can compare notes on it and things that we know that really work. Cool. Is there other? Sarah's got her hand raised for a couple of hours.
I just wanted to point something out on certificates.
Yeah.
When you're like, after you create a certificate and you're like looking at that certificate, there's no like button that allows you to go back to the list of all your certificates. You have to like jump over to a different page and jump back.
Okay. Um, yeah, you're right. Actually, I think there might already be a job for that, a little task for that. But thank you. I'm going to make sure that there is.
Okay,
It'll
yeah, I
be
just wanted to point it out.
Thank you. Nothing gets past you, Sarah. Um, uh, making a note, otherwise I'll forget. It's called a breadcrumb. Is what we need. Which will have a little link back to where you come from, the certificates. Cool. Thank you. Is there still some questions there, Heather?
There's one. She's no longer on the call though.
Okay. Is it worth touching on, or we'll leave it for next time?
It has to do with trying to use Obvio with Restream.
Okay.
I don't know
Yep.
if that's something that's easy or not.
It is. Yeah, it is easy. So
Okay.
it's yeah, we can, it's on the recording now anyway, so we could send it to them. But basically, the way that Restream works is that it will take a live stream, a single live stream, and then it will restream that to multiple locations. And so you can send a single stream and this is just live streaming out of Zoom, like we were talking about with YouTube. Instead of sending it to YouTube, the option is to send it to a custom live stream server. That custom live stream server you will enter in the details for Restream, and then you'll choose in Restream, you're choosing what are the destinations that you want to use. And so now you can set up Facebook and YouTube and whatever else, LinkedIn or whatever the other options are, and you can send a single stream to multiple destinations. So it's totally possible to do that using the custom live stream server option.
Yeah, she's saying when she opens up the room, they're immediately live, but that would work the same way if you're restreaming it to like YouTube or something. It would just automatically start playing. Correct. Or
Yeah, you've got to start the live stream. So every time I open this meeting, the recording is started automatically, the cloud recording. But the live streaming is something that's manually started. And so yeah, maybe there's more to that question that we need to discuss, but we can probably do that next week. They come back. Sweet. Great. Well, thank you, everyone. It's always a great conversation. We will. Oh, Franklin, you are known. I've missed you because I remember you always coming in last minute, right when I'm saying goodbye. Hang on, I've got a question. Hang on.
This
Go ahead.
question,
Yeah.
time zone. I want to schedule an event. I'm trying to figure out the ideal time frame where people in different parts can participate. What has been your experience in that in terms of like if you're having an event obviously on the computers worldwide, but what time frame? I'm on Central Standard Time. What's a decent time frame to have where you won't be, causing people too much pain or so forth for full participation? What do you have any insight on that?
Yeah. So I guess are your attendees like mostly US based, as in US centric? Do you think, or is it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I
Think so,
think so.
with a few
Yeah,
exceptions.
yes.
It's often what we see is that the bulk of the events the attendees have are in the US, and then you have people that are joining from Australia and Canada and Europe and all over the place. And those diehard internationals will get up in the middle of the night and they'll make it happen. So really, it's just you managing a good time for you and for the US.
Yeah.
And so we see a lot of events. Blue and Barry run lots of events at starting at around 10 or 11 Eastern. And so, 11 is pretty common. And so, which, is kind of 8, 8 o'clock Pacific is not too bad, you know. And so, and then you just kind of run and you think about your breaks and things. I don't breaks is really challenging when you're planning your event because you can make them too long. I don't think, sort of an hour. I think an hour break is too long generally.
Mhm.
And half an hour is not too bad. 40 minutes is pretty good for a sort of a meal break, but you can encourage people to just eat when you want to eat. We do some events where we have no breaks,
Mm.
and we have breakout room times and things like that, and it can totally work. And people just kind of eat. They can eat a little bit while they're going, and they just manage that themselves, and that can work quite well. And then you can just do sort of 10-minute breaks, 10-15 minute breaks here and there, and you just keep going through. So, but yeah, that kind of 11 Eastern, is a pretty that's a pretty good one. So, um,
Hey, Grant,
yes, go, Muddy.
I've got an SOS situation for a client event right now, right? Or a client that their buttons aren't showing up on their dashboard.
Okay.
So hang on, he's saying maybe they fixed it. Let's see. So it's the Dino Watt organization. If you would
Yeah.
take a quick look in their stage event.
Mm.
We've got two.
Yeah.
We've got two people in the monthly masterclass session, but the attendees can't get in. Looks like the dashboard is set up correctly, except when I log in as an attendee, none of the buttons are visible. The enter the main stage button is not visible. Oh, no, they're good. They got it
You
fixed.
found
I
it?
think they were disabled. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank
I
you.
was just having a. That's all right. I was having a quick look myself, but yeah. Cool. It looks okay now. Uh, I was just trying an attendee to double check. Yeah, okay. So they got a waiver and things as well. Okay. So all right, we're nearly wrapping up. Scott. Here you go, Franklin. You ready?
Yeah,
You asked.
I'm good.
You asked.
You addressed the nexus of it. I appreciate it, and I'll try very much, very, very, very hardly not to ask you questions when it's time to wrap up this, from this
No,
point.
you're fine, Franklin. You're fine. I can't talk all about how we're not restricted by time and space, and then
Oh
be
yeah.
restricted by time and space. So it's all
Okay.
good. So, but you requested a short story, so here you go.
Okay.
In the town of Brightly, with skies oh so blue, lived a man named Franklin, who knew just what to do. With a laptop and smile, a true tech savvy gent, He planned an event for next Wednesday. So splendid, so bent. Franklin sat at his desk with a click and a clack. He typed out the details. No skill did he lack. Come on, come one, come all to the grand online show, where fun will be had and new friends you'll know. He sent out invites to the young and the old with stories and games and surprises untold. The day grew closer, the excitement did grow as Franklin prepared for the grand online show. He tested the sound, he tested the light, ensuring that everything would work just right. With a tip of his hat and a gleam in his eye, he knew next Wednesday would reach for the sky. The day finally came, and the screens all did glow as Franklin's event was about to bestow. With laughter and cheer and faces so bright, the online event took off like a kite. There were quizzes and riddles and dances galore, with prizes for winners and much, much more. Franklin hosted with joy and a voice full of glee. He made everyone feel as happy as can be. When the event came to the end and the screens dimmed their light, Franklin waved to his friends and wished them good night. He knew in his heart, as he shut down his screen, that the magic of Wednesday was more than just seen. For Franklin had gathered, with care and delight, a world full of friends on that magical night. And as they laid down, with a smile so bright, he dreamt of new wonders and next Wednesday's light. So if you hear of an event and Franklin's the host, join with a cheer and be part of the most wonderful, whimsical, digital spree. For Franklin's events are the best, you'll agree.
Grant, you're amazing.
That's great.
This is a universal applause sign right here.
There you go. It is, yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. All right.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. See you next week.